Good Monday morning, everybody, and happy Labor Day. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandages here with your tropical update. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. Notice I'm not saying Atlantic tropical update today because today we're going to span both basins. We're going to start in the Atlantic that has two named storms, a hurricane and a tropical storm, but then we're also going to talk about Tropical Storm K in the Eastern Pacific and how it may have some impacts on the United States, in particular Southern California, which could certainly use some of that tropical moisture, the rainfall, because it's dealing with severe to extreme drought conditions there. Today, September 5th, 2022, 5 days out from the climatological peak of the hurricane season on September 10th. Here's our scorecard. 5 named systems so far in the Atlantic Basin. K just formed within the last day or so. So now they're up to 11 named storms. Of course, they had Bonnie that moved over basins, started in the Atlantic, moved into the Pacific. So overall, there were 12 named systems in the Eastern Pacific so far, and there's still more activity a lot of the models are pointing to going forward. So, been a rather quiet season in the Atlantic Basin. You may be asking yourself, well, how does this season stack up to, say, past seasons up to today, up to September 5th? So we've had 5 named storms. Of those, 1 have become a hurricane. Danielle, it's still out there, a Category 1. Last year at this time, we had already 12 named storms. 5 of them were hurricanes, and 3 were major hurricanes. Then 2020, the most active season on record. At this point in time, we were already at 15 named storms with 5 hurricanes, 1 of those becoming a major. And pretty much we're lagging behind each season all the way up to 2017. You remember how hyperactive 2017 was. 10 named storms at this point in time, 4 hurricanes, and 2 of those were major hurricanes. So we're a lot behind here compared to other seasons, but climatologically we're running just a little bit behind where a normal season would be up to this date. All right, let's jump over and talk about Danielle now. Hurricane Danielle in the North Atlantic. Abnormally far to the north because the waters are so warm in the northern Atlantic that they can support tropical activity in an area not really called the tropics. It's the subtropical area. Category 1 storm right now on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It's got winds of 90 miles an hour, so a high-end Category 1. It was forecast to become a Category 2. That's unlikely to happen now because I'm going to show you in a second. It's moving away from those warm waters, the fuel source that's given it and sustained it for this last several days at hurricane status. Here's visible satellite imagery, still a very healthy looking system. You can see an eye right there in the visible satellite imagery. It's crawling to the north-northeast, and it's really been capitalizing on those warmer than normal ocean waters, giving it that energy. Here's what it looks like in terms of sea surface temperatures. Now, everything that's shaded in red is water temperatures that's 80 degrees or warmer. Why that number is important is because anything lower than that is not quite suitable for tropical development and the heat transfer between the ocean and the atmosphere. So you need 80 degrees or warmer there, and it's just on that northern fringe and forecast to move out of there during the day today. So we're going to start to see a general weakening as this pushes to the north, and that's reflected on the National Hurricane Center's official forecast cone. By later on tonight into tomorrow morning, we're down to 85 mile an hour winds. So not a rapid drop in intensification, but it is weakening, weakens more. It's expected to have an extra tropical transition as it heads into the higher latitudes, and eventually just a large windstorm as it gets possibly towards the United Kingdom by later this weekend or even in early next week. Something to watch out there. All right, now let's jump over to Tropical Storm Earl. This is the newest feature out in the Atlantic Basin. It was just named on Friday night, and it's moving to the north-northwest at 5 miles an hour. It's strengthening too at 65 miles an hour. But if you look at this, something looks off, doesn't it? The center, as depicted by recon aircraft that just flew through the storm, shows the center here off to the west of all of the convection, all of the very strong convection. When you look at an infrared satellite imagery here and you see the white shadings, large areas of white shadings, those are extremely cold cloud tops, meaning they're very high into the sky, very strong. But they're offset from that center. What's going on here? Wind shear. Higher levels aloft, we've got winds coming in from the southwest, blowing all that convection and offsetting it from the center, tilting the system, but it's still maintaining some strengthening, which wind shear is typically a deterrent to halt strengthening. So if it can tilt its way back up and become vertically aligned, we'll see this really start to intensify pretty quickly. And it is forecast to do so in its lifetime. It's actually expected to become a major hurricane, the first of the season in the Atlantic Basin. All right, if you look off here off to the north and west and the visible satellite imagery here, North-northwest at 5 miles an hour, so crawling over some pretty warm ocean waters. Here it is on visible satellite, and you can see the wind shear coming in out of the southwest. So here's the low-level center. You can see it getting exposed as the sun comes on up and we see the daylight on the cloud tops. You can see the low-level center there being exposed and all of the convection being blown off to the east of that center. And until that can tilt, we'll see what it does. I think once it does actually get vertically tilted, it'll ventilate properly, breathe properly, and really start to intensify. That's going to take a little while, according to the Hurricane Center. Even by later on tomorrow afternoon, it's only up to 70-mile-an-hour winds. Intensity forecasts, I will tell you, are very, very tricky. So this can easily overcompensate and be much stronger than forecast here. But the general track on it is pretty much right on with all the modeling, showing it moving off to the north and then passing to the east-southeast of Bermuda, so away from land as it strengthens in the northern Atlantic. So heading into an area not too far away from where Danielle was, where the water is still very plenty warm. 120-mile-per-hour winds, Category 3 major hurricane by the time we get towards this weekend. There is one other wave out there in the Atlantic right now. It hasn't been tagged anything yet, but it likely will. This is a 40% chance of developing here within the next 5 days, so a moderate chance, and the next name on our list is going to be Fiona. So that would be what it would be named if it does, in fact, develop into a system. So the Atlantic Basin overall, as we're 5 days out from the peak of the hurricane season, is quite active, but the good news here is that there's no imminent threat to any land or the United States at the moment, which is some great news. However, there is a threat to the United States just coming from an area you wouldn't expect and an area that doesn't usually deal with tropical impacts. So we're going to jump over to the Eastern Pacific now and talk about Tropical Storm K. Now, this developed within the last few days, and it has been intensifying up to 60-mile-per-hour winds, moving to the west-northwest at 15 miles per hour. Now, notice the track here on it takes it continuing off to the west-northwest and then due north towards the Baja California Sur here, and the Baja California by this weekend. But also notice what happens here. It strengthens to a Category 2 100-mile-per-hour winds, right? But then it starts to weaken. What's happening? It's moving out of the warm waters. What gives it fuel, sustains its strengthening. It'll lose that, and notice how quickly it drops in intensity. By Saturday morning, it's down to 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm. However, tropical storms, just because they lose their wind component, doesn't mean they lose their moisture. They're abundant rainmakers, and this is what's likely going to be impacting portions of Southern California. Futurecast modeling here, the GFS shows a rainfall forecast into this weekend and early next week. I mean, nothing extraordinary, but maybe 1 to 2 inches in Southern California, which is good news because they've been dealing with extreme severe drought conditions in a large portion of the state. So any rain will be welcome there as that system kind of peters on out and tries to throw a little bit of tropical moisture in that direction. So that's about it in terms of tropical impacts. It's nothing that's going to be damaging. It'll be welcome moisture, welcome rainfall in that part of the United States. So we'll watch how that plays on out in the next 5 to 7 days or so. So that's it. That's a big overview of what's going on currently in the tropical Atlantic. Of course, we'll see you again later today and again tomorrow. Until next time, you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also on TikTok at TimTalkWeather. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day.